Welcome back to Canyon Tune, guys. I was actually informed that a bunch of my family started watching my YouTube, so I thought that was pretty cool. So if you're watching, I'm in Arizona right now, obviously, but I got a bunch of family back in New York. So if you're watching this, hello. Today we are going to be working on the E36 Supercharger setup. I was waiting on some parts here, so we have some 1 1/4 inch rubber plugs. These are going to be for the manifold because I'm going to be deleting that CCV valve. And then I have a manual belt tensioner, which is required for this kit. You can't use the hydraulic one because apparently it doesn't provide the right tension for that supercharger belt. And then I had to get some special button head bolts for securing the alternator. I guess the way the belt routes with the new setup, one of the standard bolt heads, the hex heads, would hit the belt the way that it's wrapped around and then just wear the belt out. So you have to replace that with a button head, which for some reason my kit didn't come with. And then I have a bunch of vacuum related stuff. So I had to get some check valves because you don't want to be applying boost to like your purge valve and the whole like emissions related stuff. I may actually have to delete the EGR, which I already have it tuned out, so I'm probably going to be doing that. Basically any emissions crap I can delete that doesn't like boost anyways, I'm just gonna try and get rid of and make the setup a lot easier. So the goal today probably is to figure out that rat nest of tubing underneath the manifold and then try to get this manifold back on because it's supposed to be super windy tomorrow and I really don't want that motor, those ports on the head, open for much longer and get some dirt in there. That would not be good. Say hi, Remy. He's a big scaredy cat. Okay, so for anybody that wants to delete the CCV, it's pretty simple. If you want to completely remove it, there's kind of two options. So this hose runs down to the dipstick. I'll show you that in a minute. And then this is going on the end of the manifold. So we're gonna use a rubber plug to plug that off. And then I was gonna keep this in the car, so Active Autowerk provided this weird plug, so I'm not even gonna use this because I'm deleting this whole thing. But essentially all you have to do is take the existing line that runs off of the bottom of that and just trim it down, throw a bolt in there and then a hose clamp, and then you shouldn't get any oil coming through, and then that's all sealed off now in the dipstick tube. Looking at our manifold, this is where the ICV goes, and then this is for your CCV. So this would have been sitting like this and then bolted into those bolts right there. So what I'm going to do is take my 1 1/4 inch rubber plug, shove it in there, tighten it down, and then that should be sealed off and CCV valve will be deleted. The plug's in place and all tightened down. Just make sure you don't tighten that too much because it's really thin plastic and you'll crack that. So what I think I'm going to do is actually mount the CCV onto the manifold and then figure out the routing for it going back into this pipe. Alright, so we got the idle control valve all back on here. So like I was saying, I might need this 90-degree piece on the end of this hose here to make that reach that barb on the intake pipe. So probably have to take this little 45 off and then get another hose. I think I have one that's the same diameter to make sure that reaches. This is more of a note to myself. There is a gasket right here, a gray one, and that could be a potential for a boost leak down the road. Hopefully not, but we'll see. And then all of these little vacuum ports here, I'm gonna have to zip tie all those because those will pop off under boost as well. So just like these little things you got to think about before you even, you know, start boosting a car, to make sure that you got everything tied down so it doesn't come off. I've dealt a lot with that with the Evo. I had to zip tie every freaking vacuum line on that car because go out for a drive, one would pop off, and then I'd have to limp home because some vacuum line underneath the manifold that I couldn't reach anymore popped off, and then you're kind of screwed. This might look a little bit strange, but I don't know if you can see that. I got two T-fittings here. This line is going to the boost gauge. This one is for the blow-off valve. This one goes in the bottom of the intake manifold on those ports, and then this is the existing hard line that goes down underneath the car to the fuel pressure regulator. So I'm not sure if that actually needs a check valve too. So I know some of these pressure regulators are like, have a boost reference. But I mean, E36 would never be in boost, so it's always a vacuum reference to modify fuel pressure as you're driving, and the vacuum goes down as you're, you know, pressing gas harder. So I don't know how that really works with boost. I'll have to keep an eye on the fuel pressure as we tune this thing. And this weird mechanism here goes into this port right here, like that. And then they have some kind of like oil filter, or sorry, fuel filter in line to capture the blow by, but I really want to install a catch can. I don't think that's going to work very well. I don't know why Active Autowerk for an $8,000 kit would have done something like this. Pretty jank. No way that's capturing all the blow by from a boosted motor from one of these cars. And then the second line, I think is supposed to go to the evap purge valve. So yeah, definitely a weird setup. For any of you N52 or S52 guys that still have these S52 manifolds, you got three nipples on the bottom here. They're all different sizes, and you can see where those correspond. So just get all your lines ready pretty much. So you got your bigger one here, smaller one, and then this guy. So here's your three lines that plug into the bottom of that manifold. So just make sure you get all that ready, so when you shove that intake manifold back in, you know where everything plugs back in, and you're not fishing underneath the manifold looking for stuff, because it gets pretty complicated under there. There's a lot of coolant lines and wires that look like these vacuum hoses, and it's easy to get them mixed up. And then you do have that one plug for, I think it's the intake air temp sensor, yeah. And then the plug that goes on the end of this. So just make sure you keep track of all that. Here's a pro tip, because I had to take the manifold off twice. Put some vacuum lines on the bottom of the manifold, attach them properly, and leave some leads, and then put the manifold on, because you won't be able to reach under there and stick them up in there. So yeah, it's a word of advice to make things a lot easier. So then from there, I'm just gonna tee off of those and do whatever I need to do with the rest of the vacuum system. Put the manifold back on, bolt it in. I think I'm gonna throw fuel injectors in. I got some 440cc injectors that came with the kit, just to seal up the manifold for that big old windstorm tomorrow. Wanna make sure everything's nice and airtight so dust doesn't get in there. We got the new injectors in, got the manifold on, bolted in. Got some vacuum lines run down there. I just gotta plumb them into the rest of the system. And then this piece I kind of mocked up, kind of goes on there, and then it connects to that pipe with the blow-off valve that goes down to the bottom. That's gonna be fun to connect, but I think I'm gonna pick this up tomorrow and then hopefully finish things up. I drew a little diagram here of the vacuum system since it's getting a little bit complicated. So this is the manifold here. There's 3 ports on the bottom of the manifold. There's a bigger one for the charcoal canister purge valve, and I need to put a one-way check valve in between there so I don't send boost to the fuel tank. That would be bad. And then we have one of the lines coming off with a T on it. So we got the boost gauge and then the fuel pressure regulator, and then one going straight to the blow-off valve. This was originally used for the EGR, but that's been deleted in my DME, and you guys should probably delete this too. The next day, I think I'm actually going to switch gears here and put this belt tensioner on and try to get the belts on. Just to make sure I don't need to order any more hardware for the belt system. I was getting real tired of trying to route all those vacuum lines. Once the intake manifold was on, there's not a lot of room, so figured I would continue on something else. So we made some really good progress here. I have this new tensioner on. I had to use a shorter bolt on the bottom of it, and it was a little tough to get to that bottom one. I actually take the pulley off first to get to the bolt behind it and put this pulley back on, but we got the belts routed and back on. This belt is super tight. Obviously you don't want this belt to slip on the pulley here, so, but man, that is really tight belt. Hope that doesn't snap. Definitely gonna have to buy another one of these because I'm reusing the one that they had in the kit, and it's a little bit frayed on this one side. The other thing to note is, I don't know if you could see it, but down here you have to install a button head bolt instead of a hex bolt because there's very little clearance between the bolt that holds on the power steering pump and clearancing to the belt itself. I have like probably a millimeter of room still, even with that button head bolt on there. So, but yeah, it went on pretty good. Belt routing is super weird in this area, but I think we made some pretty good progress. The traction control throttle body is coming off completely. Don't need that where we're going. I usually turn it off anyways because it's super invasive, but yeah. I think to get the actual traction control light, because once you unplug these, you'll have an ASC light on the dash all the time. I'm pretty sure you can put resistance to some of these pins. I'll have to look into it to get rid of that light on the dash. So we got mostly everything back together. Nice, looking good. I put this pipe on, put everything on underneath. This I just have to connect to the blow-off valve, this vacuum line. Put the intake on, and then this bottom hose, for the life of me, I cannot get to fit properly, so I'm probably gonna have my friend Chris refabricate this whole pipe. I'm just over it. And then I don't know why they had to put the blow-off valve in the most awkward place on this pipe, but you cannot get that on there. So I think I'm gonna have Chris weld that shut where the blow-off valve used to go, and then probably relocate it on this lower pipe right here, something like that, and then I can recirculate the end of this blow-off valve to this spot right here. So should make the routing a little bit better too. I really don't like how they did that. Active Autowerk, if you're continuing to make these kits, please put the blow-off valve somewhere like over here, or even on the other side where everything's not cramped together. All right, so I decided I'm probably gonna film one more day before posting this episode. I noticed that I didn't really like the way that this filter was sitting down here for the Supercharger oil system, so I'm gonna have to get some more hose and kind of extend that and push it a little bit further up. There's just too much stuff in this area. I don't have to worry about it. And then the intake actually comes around and goes down here, and that line is actually in the way of going down into that hole. So I'm gonna have to get some more here and then just kind of reroute it. But after that, I can fill the oil system, prime it. You gotta apply air pressure to this, and it kind of gets all the air bubbles out, and you crack this line here and let all the air out, and then should be able to start it. Gotta just put the cooling hoses back on and the fan, and then we should be good. Figured I would at least try and start the car. I don't think, obviously these intake pipes and everything aren't going to be on there, but can at least start it up again, see how it runs and everything. I kind of made a little bit of a bass tune for those new 450cc injectors. Kind of did some math, general math scaling. So it should have like a bass tune, so I can drive it over my buddy's house down the street and won't have any serious issues. So just to recap on some of the fabrication stuff I'm gonna have to get done. So again, this pipe, it was hitting on the AC tensioner. So this whole pipe I'm gonna get remade, and then weld that pipe shut where the blow-off valve went, reposition it on the other side where there's more room, and then I have to have him weld an O2 sensor bung on my stock exhaust. I was gonna put headers on this car, but it'll probably be down the road a little bit once I get it back up and running. It's day 1,045,000. I am trying to get this thing back on the road so I can bring it over to Chris's house tomorrow to get that fab work done. So I went ahead and got 10 feet of, I think this is, yeah, transmission oil cooler line. It should work for the oil cooler system on the Supercharger. 10 feet should hopefully be enough, because I found out that there's date stamp on that original hose that I got with the kit, and it's from like 2015, I think. So those hoses are pretty crusty anyways, and I really wanted to relocate that this filter here in a different spot. So we're gonna go ahead and replace all the lines. All right, we got the new lines in. Time to fill this baby up with Supercharger oil. All right, so the instructions tell you to pressurize the system and crack the inlet line to let all the air out, or air bubbles out of the system, to prime it. So we're gonna try to do that next. All right, so we got a little rubber plug here, drilled a hole through it. Now we got a fitting on the top. So I'm just gonna kind of hold this on the top of the reservoir and then shoot my air into it. And then hopefully some air comes out on the side. So that worked. We spilled a whole bunch of fluid underneath, but yeah, it came out where the inlet is, so the system is definitely primed now, and I could probably start it. Figured I'd clean up the engine bay a little bit, use some simple green and some rags here, but looking a lot better. Couldn't deal with this filthy engine bay. This is my Toge beater car, so I rarely go under the hood and check anything. It's been such a good car that I don't even have to open engine bay that often, which is nice, but it does get very, very dirty under here. This is my second OEM fan switch here that goes into the radiator. I don't know why, for the life of me, I cannot get these things to work. So this is actually from, like, I think a KTM motorcycle, and it just has, so I soldered these plugs on here because I have a custom setup for my relay. So these actually have those stock, so maybe it was my soldering job, but I don't know. This looks a lot better anyways. So got the cooling system all back together. Forgot how freaking close this fan is to the belts. Hopefully everything's good. And then this upper radiator hose is super close to this pulley too, so should be fine, I think. But yeah, I'm gonna start filling the cooling system with some water first, see if there's any leaks, and then try to throw that tune in here and start her up. Temporarily plugged off these vacuum lines. So again, this one was going to the boost gauge, and then I got one on this side that was supposed to be going to the blow-off valve, which isn't hooked up yet. So I think right now I'm gonna turn the key a couple times and try to prime the fuel system to make sure there's no leaks with these new injectors, and then I'm gonna throw the tune on. She's flashing, boys. Really hope this thing doesn't make any concerning noises from the supercharger when I start this thing up. Although I did hear it when it was on the other guy's car, so hopefully we're good. So it's probably not gonna run right because I don't even have a MAF hooked up. It's gonna run in speed density mode, or sorry, alpha N mode. So whatever fueling table it has, it's just gonna run off of in closed loop mode. So hopefully it's okay. It's probably gonna run like crap, but pretty nervous to start this thing for the first time. Got the old fire extinguisher just in case. It's not even trying to start. Hey, look at that, it's running. I literally just flipped the fuel pump fuse the other way and it started going. I tried to test the pressure at the rail. I didn't have any pressure, so yeah, I think we're pretty good. Let's pop that coolant off. Hasn't thrown a belt yet, so that's good. We got some serious air coming out of here. That supercharger's definitely working. So I'm really happy that it started on the first couple tries. I think, you know, the entire fuel rail was empty fuel, so I had to crank it for a little bit of time to have that fill back up. But I'm pretty proud of myself for that tune that I did. Just right off the bat, it ran fine even without the MAF. So thought it was gonna run like super rough. So I think we're in a really good spot. I may even go test drive it just around the block to make sure it's all good. I obviously don't have a filter on the supercharger itself, so I don't want anything to fly in there, even though it's not hooked up to anything right now. But man, this thing moves some air even at idle, so I was really surprised by that. It's pretty neat. Curious to see what this supercharger is like. I've never been in an E36 that was supercharged. I've been in a turboed one, and that was pretty wild, but yeah, new adventures. So we're gonna attempt to go for a drive. I hope that induction sound comes through on camera because it sounds pretty sweet. Starts right up with those new injectors. It's like it was stock. Let's see if we can get some induction sound here. That sounds pretty wild. Even idle's fine, which that idle control valve, the way that I routed it, seems to be working okay. Remember, none of my intercooler pipes are hooked up yet, so I have no boost. So this is just to make sure everything's working and I got no leaks, and then we're gonna have to fabricate those other pipes a little bit before I can hook everything up. But drives like a completely stock car, no differences. Check engine light is on because I unplugged a bunch of emission stuff, but I'm gonna be deleting all that. And it's probably because I have the MAF unplugged. Totally forgot about that. I can't believe it's running this well without the MAF and double size injectors. Not too bad. Not too bad. One more little rev. Oh yeah. So cool. I could bring this over Chris's house tomorrow, get that fab work done, and then we can start boosting, boys. So I'm gonna make sure everything's good under here one last time. Yep, looking pretty good. I like it. Very nice. So I know this was a pretty long episode. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. At least you got to see it drive. I still cannot believe, with the MAF unplugged and bigger injectors, it still runs like it's completely stock. So it's zero problems. No problems idling, nothing. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on that fabrication work. I'm gonna be posting another episode after this one, getting into the tuning aspect. I have to hook up that 370Z MAF and get the tune sorted for related to that. But yeah, we're in really good shape.